Did you know that most publishing contracts come with an NDA or a non-disclosure agreement? In fact, I have seen so many publishing contracts throughout my years helping authors to navigate this and navigating them myself, and I've never once seen one without some form of NDA to protect proprietary information, the contents of your book, etc. So, what do you need to know before you sign this contract or after you sign this contract to make sure you're not getting yourself in hot water with your publisher? Let's get into it with your first favorite IP and entertainment lawyer, Tony.
My name is Tony Iliakostas. I'm an adjunct professor of entertainment law and IP at New York Law School, and I have an Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok account called The IP Professor that's dedicated to all things intellectual property.
Continuing our conversation on book contracts, I want to talk about NDAs. Oftentimes, these are explicitly included inside of our contracts. Sometimes it's just a natural part of the language of the contract, but can you break down what an NDA is and what we need to know about it as authors working with traditional publishers to make sure we don't burn ourselves?
So non-disclosure agreements are probably some of the most important contracts that any person, especially in the creative industry, will ever sign. Whether you're talking about you're an author working with a publisher or you're an actor working with a film studio, it spans across a lot of aspects of the entertainment industry. So the essence of a non-disclosure agreement, if we had to sum it up, is that you have to be bound by a secrecy. You are basically putting the proverbial key in your mouth, twisting the lock, and then throwing the key away. So the whole premise of it is you don't share any details about the terms of the contract or the relationship between you and the other party at all. You're basically under this embargo period. And once the embargo period comes, that's when the embargo gets lifted and you could freely talk about it to the extent that you can. Now, in the context of a book publisher, let's say you're working on a really highly anticipated series. If you're an author working with a book publisher and they have you sign an NDA, you're basically cannot share any details about the book that you're writing, not even the characters, the year that it's set in, nothing, not a single detail. Because again, the whole point of it is to maintain it as a secret. For any of my entertainment buffs watching this who know about NDAs, you probably have seen it in the context of Marvel superhero films, where all these Marvel films have always been hyped up to be, these magnanimous events, these epics of so many sorts. And usually when one Marvel movie ends, it always contains an end credit scene that tips off what's to come in the next movie or the next phase of Marvel films. And oftentimes when you watch a Marvel movie, either during the end credits or maybe even in the context of the actual film itself, you may be surprised to see an actor that wasn't shown in the trailers or was never advertised or wasn't even on the red carpet premiere. You may say to yourself, wow, I had no idea, he was there or he was in this movie or she was going to be playing this role. That's likely because those said actors had to sign non-disclosure agreements and were bound by secrecy to ever share that they were going to be a part of the Marvel film. So that same context of NDAs applies to the context of what you would typically see with publishers and authors, with other actors and film studios, and in other aspects of the entertainment industry.
And one of the things that we see a lot with these NDAs inside of our contracts is the word proprietary information about the companies. Can you break that down for us a little?
I'm so glad you mentioned that. So proprietary information is another word for trade secret. So essentially, any detail or any sort of work product information that you're privy to and the other party is privy to is, for all intents and purposes, considered a trade secret. This is a big aspect of intellectual property law. This basically involves any sort of confidential information, whether that's, let's say, a recipe, a formula, certain data, client lists, other valuable information that has some type of financial component to it, meaning that it's financially a profitable good or service. Competitors want it. But the most important aspect of a trade secret is that it has to be essentially a secret, meaning that it is not readily ascertainable and efforts are done to maintain its secrecy. Now, the essence, again, of an NDA is that it's a two-party type of contract, right? It's not done on a unilateral basis. Marvel will certainly say, we're going to keep it a secret, but hey, actor X, you got to keep a secret that your role as superhero, whatever, you got to keep that a secret as well. So for all the purposes of that detail, that information is considered proprietary. You cannot share that. You cannot share that publicly. And if you do, that would be a breach of the terms of the NDA. And that's also where you have to be very careful with NDAs. And if you ever are presented one, hire a lawyer immediately, especially if you don't know what is typically found in an NDA. Because what you want to make sure is that the language of an NDA is enforceable and legal to begin with. There are a lot of NDAs where you're being sworn to secrecy in exchange for money. Those are a bit corrupt. Those are the hush money agreements that we've heard in recent years. But if you have some other type of NDA where it contains a term that let's say says if you breach by sharing proprietary or confidential information, this could lead to a termination of the deal or something else. That's where it could become a bit that is where it's more enforceable. But having an NDA reviewed by a lawyer is going to be a pivotal part of the process. Letting a lawyer review it to see if essentially the ramifications, the conditions for terminating the NDA, if those are legally valid, that's going to help give you or sway your decision as to whether or not you should or shouldn't sign that NDA or even work with that partner in the first place. But bear in mind, the whole discussion of termination is conditional to you not being able to keep whatever is the premise of the contract a secret. So if you know that this is like highly coveted information and that one party, in this case a publisher, wants to keep that a secret, just keep it a secret. I mean, it doesn't hurt. I'm sure all of us have been capable of doing that. I know that there are some of us that maybe got a bit of a big mouth, but an NDA basically is a legally enforceable contract that prevents that big mouth from, yapping and flapping gums. So probably err on the side of caution and, think twice, especially when you are sharing information, but also, knowing that you had signed an NDA, be cautious of what information you're sharing because you may or may not even know that you may be breaking the terms of that NDA.
And we love transparency inside of this industry, but I have never seen a book contract, and I have read a lot of book contracts in my day, that does not have an element of an NDA involved with it, because you cannot be sharing what's going on behind the scenes with a publisher. They want to keep that quiet, and they want to keep the context of your book quiet as well until they're ready to market it the way that they need to. Those authors, my best advice to you is keep your mouth shut and ask questions before you do things. If you want to have a conversation, if you want to talk about these different elements, ask your publisher. You have representatives, you have people that you can go to and ask the questions. Can I talk about this? Can I discuss this? Can I create a video on this? Can I do a live stream on this? Get the okay beforehand, because not doing so can result in very big suffering for you later on. And we don't want to have your book contract revoked or something else happen to you. We want to make sure that you are in good standing with your publisher. So always ask the questions first, get permission first, then have the conversations. And if you don't get permission, there's lots of other things you can talk about. We give you content ideas here on the platform. Watch the playlist. I got you covered. But if you've got questions, go to the person you have the contract with and get that clarity before you move forward, so you don't cause issues for yourself, your book, or your future work, because it's not just about the book you've got now, it's about the future work as well. If you continue to have questions on this, go ahead and drop those down below. Tony's coming back for upcoming episodes to make sure that we are legally protected inside of the publishing industry. And as always, you can reach out to Tony on his social media. Tony, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at the IP Professor. And you can check out my entertainment law podcast called End Scene. New episodes drop every Friday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Drop your questions on publishing contracts down below. And if you've got questions on writing, marketing, or publishing, now is the time. We're dropping daily videos to make this your most profitable year ever, with less time commitment, with less stress, so that you can live your best life while also living out your author dreams. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.